A Russian government official just made a series of predictions for the upcoming year in 2023, and if even half of these come through, it is going to be a wild year. Enter Dmitri Medvedev, who is the deputy chair of the Security Council of the Russian Federation, and he was the president of Russia from 2008 through 2012. Now, some of these predictions you'll notice are absolutely outlandish, but some of them potentially are not that far off, especially given the amount of unlikely scenarios that have unfolded over just the last 2 years. So in his words, here is Russia's humble contribution to some wild and absurd futuristic hypotheses. Number 1, oil price will rise to $150 per barrel. Gas will top $5 per cubic meter, and that one is not far off. Obviously, oil prices have been coming down off their highs, but it's very possible that that is just a correction on a long-term bull market due to the structural low supply in the industry over this long-term bear market that we've seen developing over the last years, 5 to 10 years, not just what's happened over the past 2 years. Further, he says he thinks the UK will join the EU and that the EU will collapse after the UK's return, which means the euro will drop out of use as the former EU currency. Now, personally, in my opinion, counts for very little here, but personally, I don't think there's a very big chance that the UK rejoins the EU. But if they were to do that, it would almost certainly result in a collapse of the EU, which would then result in a collapse of the euro. Real quick word from today's sponsor, iTrustCapital. iTrustCapital allows you to use your retirement account to invest in Bitcoin, gold, and silver. Many people, when they buy gold or silver or Bitcoin for the first time, they just go out and they make the purchase, whether it's from a gold dealer or buying Bitcoin from an exchange. Later on, whether it's a year or 2 years down the road when the price has gone up a lot, they go to sell it and realize they're hit with a capital gains tax. This leaves people with a sour taste in their mouth when investing in gold and silver and Bitcoin because they're saying, hey, look, I know that inflation is eating away at my fiat currency, my dollars, but if I put my money in sound money, if I buy gold, if I buy silver, if I buy Bitcoin, I'm going to get hit with a tax on it anyway. And that's why it's so important to take advantage of retirement accounts when you are diversifying your assets. The problem is most brokerages, most retirement accounts do not allow you to invest in gold or silver or Bitcoin or any other cryptocurrencies. That is where iTrustCapital comes in. You can buy and sell Bitcoin, gold, silver inside of your IRA anytime. You can use this retirement account to make new contributions, or you can even use old retirement account money rolled over into an IRA with iTrustCapital. With everything going on right now in the crypto industry, many people are concerned about any exchange, any place that allows you to buy cryptocurrencies, about security and fraud. With iTrustCapital, they never take custody of your assets. There is no mingling of assets, and there is no way for iTrustCapital to access clients' money. It is securely stored in third-party institutional storage that is cold storage. And it's a regulated trust company so that it is a legal IRA. Like I said, they take security very seriously, which is why I use and recommend iTrustCapital to invest in gold, silver, and Bitcoin for your retirement account. And if you use my link in the description below, there's a special bonus waiting for you as well. Number 4, Poland and Hungary will occupy western regions of the formerly existing Ukraine. Now, this might be more publicity, but you can see here, at least in the word choice, the commitment that they have to what's going on between Russia and Ukraine right now, that the prediction going into 2023 is that Ukraine will be formerly existing. Those are some strong words. Next, he says the Fourth Reich will be created, encompassing the territory of Germany and its satellites like Poland, the Baltic states, and others. Now, this continues along with the theme that Russia has been using to justify its invasion of Ukraine, and I don't know to what extent this is true, if at all, but the theme of the resurgence of Nazis and that battle between the Soviets and the Nazis coming up again. This is kind of going along those same lines of thinking, saying saying, hey, this is going to be a theme that will lead into a larger war than what we currently have going on in Eastern Europe. Going on, he says that because of that, war will break out between France and the Fourth Reich. Europe will be divided, Poland repartitioned, Northern Ireland will separate from the UK, join the Republic of Ireland, clearly painting a picture of further war and chaos and geopolitical tensions all across Europe. Now, this might sound outlandish, but going into 2022, if somebody would have told you, hey, in 2022, Russia is going to invade Ukraine and that war, that military conflict will continue through the remainder of 2022 and it won't be solved by the end, many people would have said that sounds absolutely preposterous and that will never happen. But it did. And here is where it gets even crazier. He predicts that civil war will break out in the United States. California and Texas will become independent states as a result. Texas and Mexico will form an allied state, and then Elon Musk will win the presidential election in a number of states, which after the new civil war will have been given to the GOP. Now, personally, I don't and I won't have a dog in this fight because if it gets anywhere close to civil war, I am long gone. However, if we're going to be betting here and we're going to say if there's a civil war between the left and the right, who has the weapons between the left and the right? So a prediction of a civil war being won by the right, in my opinion, that's not a far-fetched bet there. Further than that, the claim that California and Texas will become independent countries as a result of this would not be far off as well, because they both have large populations of political constituencies that are on the opposite sides of the spectrum there. And so even without a civil war, it's very possible that we get to a point where Congress decides to allow secession again, or even to kick states out of the union. And if that were the case, California and Texas would very likely be one of the first ones to go. Moving on, as a result of this, the largest stock markets and financial activity will leave the US and Europe and move to Asia. Now, this is something that is probably already going to happen over a much longer period of time, regardless of anything else in this list of predictions, simply because that's the way the world is going. If you take a look at this chart, it is created by Ray Dalio, and in depth, he studied the rise and fall of empires over the last hundreds of years and showed how each one of these factors rise and fall along with the empire, but some are leading and some are lagging. If you take a look, things like education become a huge leading factor in a country before they are at the peak of their empire. But things like the reserve status of their currency, that's one of the lagging indicators. It lasts the longest far after the empire has already peaked. And if you notice the pink line there that ends next to the 0.4 on the right-hand side, that is the financial center. So when we look at things that show that the United States is currently at the top of the global hierarchy in terms of superpowers, we look at things like the dollar has a global reserve currency status. We look at the things like the financial center of the world is in the United States. We look at things like the military strength. Those tend to be lagging indicators, as you can see here, and they tend to fall, one of the last things to fall after the empire has already peaked. And so as new powers and as global powers shift, things like the financial center of the world shift along with it. They just go a little bit more towards the end. And then finally, he predicts that the Bretton Woods system of monetary management will collapse, leading to the IMF and the World Bank crash. The euro and the dollar will cease to circulate as the global reserve currencies. Digital fiat currencies will be actively used instead. Now, that last part about the dollar and the euro ceasing to circulate in digital fiat currencies instead, I've long talked about the decline and the rise of new financial systems. And really, there are four choices for the new monetary systems that will exist on the other side of the collapse of this one. It will collapse. It's a matter of when, not if. There are only four choices for the new type of money. And I think three of them will compete with each other until one of them eventually wins. There are four choices. One is a private ledger. One is a public ledger, one is a commodity money, and one is a commodity-backed money. Those are the only 4 choices of monetary systems. So we look at something like a private ledger, that'd be something like Bitcoin. Obviously, that is an example of something that is possible. We already see countries like El Salvador adopting Bitcoin. Private ledger monetary systems have existed in the past with things like the Micronesian islands using the Reich stones as public ledgers. And so public ledgers. And so public ledgers have existed before. Private ledgers exist today. It's a form of fiat currency where you have a private company, whether it's a bank, just keeping a list of all the accounts and transactions. A digital currency with a government like a CBDC is just the centralization of that. And so you get a central bank controlling the entire monetary ledger for the entire country, all the financial institutions that exist within it. It's just a form of private ledger monetary system. It's just furthering what we have today. That will likely be tried somewhere as well. So we've got public ledgers being tried, private ledgers being tested and tried right now. The next is commodity-backed money. We've had that for many hundreds of years in the past, where you have a fiat currency that's backed by something of tangible value, something like gold, oil, and many countries are talking about trying to bring that back. Countries like Russia and China are trying to bring that back. So that will likely be a new form of money that will spring up and exist alongside the other two in competition with each other. The last one is commodity money, where a physical commodity is actually exchanged as money. In my opinion, this will never happen unless we have some sort of a nuclear fallout, holocaust, global war that knocks out all technology. Because with global trade and with the speed at which we have to transact and the distances over which we have to transact, it's just not feasible that anything resembling a real commodity trading for money would ever happen again. Now, you might say, okay, well, what about third-party storage of things like gold, and then you swap ownership of the vaulted gold? Well, that's just commodity-backed money again. So that's not commodity money itself. So barring a complete collapse of our technological infrastructure, commodity money will probably never exist again. But after the fall of our current monetary system, we'll probably get competition between public ledger money, private ledger money, and commodity-backed money. And it's a winner-take-all game. So eventually one of those will beat the other two and will become the new financial system moving forward for the foreseeable future from there. In the end, many times predictions that are extremely outlandish seem preposterous until they actually come true. But at the end of the day, most of the time they don't, because the range of possibilities that can happen is much bigger than you can even comprehend. And so going into 2022, yes, somebody could have predicted Russia invading Ukraine. Probably not many people did, and anybody that did was probably just dismissed as saying, hey, that would never happen. So like that, all of these predictions, people would look at it and say these sound preposterous, but then once they happen, they look almost certain to happen in retrospect. So we'll see what happens, and if any of it does, obviously you will be the first to know, as I'll bring it to your attention as soon as possible. As always, thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.